Welcome to Author Adventure. I just want to thank you so much for joining us. Liz Lawless is a master at publishing, creating, helping others create their masterpiece, their volumes of information and writing books. And I just wanted to thank you for joining Liz and I to the show. I'm Russ Johns, and wanted to thank you so much for being here. The Art of Business and Publishing. We're going to be talking about 5 secrets of success. This is the premiere episode, and we want to make sure that you have all of the information necessary to publish your book and make sure that you're having a good experience. And thank you, Liz. Thank you for creating this show and inviting me into the equation as we help other authors and talk to other authors and get them on their journey and help others that have yet to start their journey. So how are you today?
Well, thanks, Russ. I'm very excited about this. Obviously, publishing is in my blood. I've been doing this for about 48 years. I know we talked about in the past, I kind of started when I was 12 with my parents' bookstore. So went from the retail side to being a journalism major and then writing myself and publishing for myself for a few years and then starting to help other people publish about 10, 15 years ago. So it's an exciting journey, and it is a journey, and that's why we call it the author adventure. That's why we called it that, because it's a process. Writing's a process, publishing, marketing, launching, distribution, all of that is a process that we'll be talking about here on this show. So I appreciate so much that you joined me in this, because I know you've published, you have an international best-selling book that you were a part of. That's one of the ways, and we're going to talk about the different ways you can create your book. We call it creating your book because, as you know, you don't even have to write today.
Right.
You can record, you can there's a number of different ways, and we'll talk about some of that as we go through the session here today.
And before we get into that, Liz, I want to ask you specifically some of the reasons why you might want to consider writing a book, because that's something that people need to kind of reflect on before they even get started on the journey, and how you can actually think through this process and maybe consider, is this for me? Is it something that I should consider and execute on? Or
it's interesting.
What are some of the reasons about that?
Well, I think the numbers are like maybe 85% of people, when asked, want to write a best-selling book. Now they don't really want to write a book. They just want to be a bestseller. Because writing a book takes a lot of sometimes time and energy and investment. And most people aren't willing to engage in that long enough to do that. But people write for a variety of reasons. They write for creative expression. They write to kind of release some trauma, maybe some trauma they've been through, some experience they've had. It could be a good experience. It could be a bad experience. People write for great, when they have great experiences as well. They want to get that down. Sometimes it's, it's a good stress reliever too. Making up stories. Sometimes the stories are made up stories, and a lot of times characters just show up in your brain, and and some people just have to write. I don't get up every morning and have to write. I get up every morning and want to create something new, but I don't necessarily get up and sit down and start with because I write longhand still. I'm a longhand person, so I write longhand and then I transfer it to the computer. So people do that. But those are some of the reasons.
Yeah, I have journaled for years, and right. Sometimes you go back, especially when you're working through things or you're expressing some ideas, and it's just almost, I'm writing. I could go back and I probably couldn't read any of the writing that I wrote. However, there's a step between journaling and getting your ideas down on paper versus taking those ideas and creating a best-selling book, or taking that first step to writing a book, putting it into a book. And we've talked about different stories and different activities and different ideas. So I want to talk a little bit about the creating process. Maybe you can kind of start explaining some of these things that we use today that weren't available when you first started.
Right, right, exactly. So, when I first started, like you say, I had to type it out or write it out or type it out even on a typewriter probably at that time. So, the reason we call it creating a book instead of writing a book is because there's usually about, like you say, 5 ways that people generally write. Some people journal, and then they take those journal notes and put it together, or maybe they blog and they've got a blog and they put that together, or possibly even today a podcast or a live stream. All of those things can be utilized. A lot of times maybe they're not a great writer and they don't have the information themselves. They're interested in a subject, so they can interview other people. So you can create a book by interviewing other people. You can create a book by getting a number of authors or people together and each person write a chapter. I know you've done that. I have friends that have done that. Then a lot of times somebody just likes to go away. Like I had a partner for a few years, and she just went to the lake house, and took a weekend off, and she just wrote, spent the, 3 or 4 days just by herself, getting everything down. She took all her notes. She took all of her, all the materials research that she had and stuff that she wanted to use. And she just sat down and wrote it, and then we come back and you write and you write and you write, you edit, you edit, you edit, you write, you write, you write. So those are some of the ways that people do today. And like you say, you can just record if you don't like to write or you can't find the time. I mean, maybe you're in the car by yourself. Maybe you're waiting sometimes, or maybe you work, a job where you have some freedom. You can just pick up your phone and record into your phone the thoughts, or maybe your chapter, your characters, or depending on if you're writing nonfiction, fiction, or a children's book. And those are the 3 kind of main genres and then within those 3 categories, you have specific genres. Like say in fiction, it's romance, sci-fi, legal thrillers, whatever.
Yeah.
Nonfiction is usually related to business or medical or finance, or some of the big things that we engage in our life: relationships, career. Children's books can be anything. And we talked about at first, why do people write? Most of the people that I work with or deal with are writing for leverage, because they have a business and they want to share that information about their business and become an expert or an industry leader to show that they have some knowledge. Or maybe it's a children's book and it's legacy. It's a story that they made up and told to their kids and then their grandkids. Maybe they're getting a little older and they want to tell that story and have that story published so they can give it as a gift to their family. And they don't even care if they sell any other copies,
I think it goes back to what you said earlier, is the creative process.
Right.
Having that journey through your ideas and some of the things that you want to, leave as a legacy, or, and having a book is a great business card. So maybe you could speak to that a little bit, Liz.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, for people like you say that have a business, maybe you're in weight loss or health and fitness, or maybe you're in finance, or maybe you're a lawyer or whatever, and you have strategies and you have tips and secrets, as we have here in publishing that we're going to be talking about, that other people don't know. Because what happens is we learn so much about what we know in our profession and our career or our job. We think everybody else knows what we know, but they don't. Okay. And then when you start talking to somebody and they go, well, I don't know that. Well, I've never heard that before. Well, how do you know that? Or where did you learn that?
Yeah.
Well, we just learn by being in the business and doing it every day. And so there are a lot of things that you learn just by doing things every day that other people don't know. And so that's what people have, is they have that information to share with other people. And, a lot of it today is about helping other people. You've had experiences or knowledge or wisdom, and most people, especially a lot of our thought leaders and people today about self-care or self-development or personal development, as a lot of us knowing it now, that's a big subject, and it's related to helping other people, because you've gotten to the other side of something. Maybe it's divorce, maybe it's childhood trauma, maybe it's just being a success in business.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just, maybe it's recovering from bankruptcy. Maybe it's buying a house for the first time. I mean, there's all kinds of subject
There's
matter.
all kinds of transformation, right?
Right.
And now I want to kind of shift gears because I know that we're, one of the 5 secrets of success in writing and publishing is publishing itself. But a lot of
Right.
people don't understand the details of what actually is required in the publishing and what that actually means nowadays. They think of, Stephen King or, a
Right.
famous author that,
Yeah.
gets these big deals.
James
And that's
Patterson,
not necessarily
or Robert.
the way it is right now. So maybe you
Right.
could kind of
Right.
unpack that a little bit, Liz, for us.
Well, we basically tell people there's 3 ways to publish. You can still traditionally publish, which is what you're talking about there. A lot of the well-known authors are traditionally published. A lot of them are starting to self-publish their own stuff because what happens is they get their stories back, and it's called backlist. After a certain period of time, their contract is usually with a traditional publisher is usually only 2, 3, maybe 5 years if you're really lucky and you've got some knowledge and name identification and some kind of a following. But then that contract's up and you get the rights back to that story. Well, in the past, that story just sat on the shelf. But
Yeah.
today, because of where we're at with technology and other stuff, a lot of those well-known authors also are self-publishing in addition to the traditional publishing option. Traditional publishing, the question is, well, the three things are traditional publishing, self-publishing, and partner publishing. Those are kind of the 3 main big categories of that. And the other stuff falls under that. KDP, which is Kindle publishing on Amazon. We'll talk about that. Print on demand is what that's called. That's what POD stands for, print on demand. That means somebody buys it or sees it, they buy it, it gets printed and shipped.
Right.
Didn't used to work that way. We used to have to print 2,500 copies, just to get the price reasonable so that if you sold it, cost you a couple of dollars per book, then you sold it for 5 or 10, you could make some money.
Yeah.
It's a totally different world we're living in today.
Well, and one of the things we were talking about the other day is this idea that publishers are now asking, how big is your email list? How big is your social media following? How big is your audience? What are you going to bring to the table when we're talking about this publishing process? So
right. And so that's the thing about it. There are a lot of myths about traditional publishing. Traditional publishing still exists. What you're talking about there is control and time. If you like complete creative control like me, I want to be completely in control of what I'm putting out and my creative expression. So that's why I didn't. But originally, I did try to traditionally publish. I sent my first children's book out to 50 publishers. I got 48 rejections. It's bad like being stabbed in the heart,
Yeah.
And I put it away for 5 years. I said, I guess this publishing's not for me. I jumped into entrepreneurship and started my advertising company in Dallas. And and I didn't think I was going to be an author until 5 years later, and an opportunity came up for me to be a part of a children's book festival. And I could put that. Then I had a printer, I had an artist because I had an advertising company, I had cash flow. To me, it wasn't a big deal. It was just another job in the shop. I had 4 or 5 other projects in the shop for clients.
Yeah.
That was just one more job. I just paid the printer every 30 days, not realizing it's a $7,000, $8,000 deal. And then I sold my 100 copies and said, yeah, self-publishing is for me. I'm off and running. And about a week later, I woke up and said, man, what am I going to do with those other 2,400 copies sitting in a print shop? Because bookstores wouldn't talk to you back then. This is 30 years ago, this is 1992. Bookstores wouldn't talk to you because you were self-published because they didn't know what self-publishing was. And I mean, they might let you come in if you're a local author, but other than that, you maybe get to come in and do a little book signing or something. But, so I had to learn all this, and I've done that over the years. But that's it. Self-publishing is you have all the control, but you also have all the cost. The thing about a traditional publisher, they will pay to produce the book. They will pay to market the book. They will edit the book. They may change the name of your characters. They may change the name of your title. They may change the look of it, or they're going to decide what the cover looks like. You're going to get to see it. They're going to have a conversation with you, and y'all are going to kind of agree on it, but they ultimately make the decisions.
Well, and it's interesting to me because of the conversations we've had in the past is, there's a lot of behind the curtains kind of activities that go on that a lot of people don't realize,
Right.
How the process works to actually have a book get on a shelf in a Barnes and Noble or a bookstore of any kind.
Right.
And I think I think this show and what our goal is to share with everyone is to be able to take those 5 secrets of success in publishing process to make sure that you have the tools and the ideas and the knowledge to go forward with your journey in creating a book of any kind.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we'll talk about the range in the way to launch and the way to publish and some of the things. Liz is a master at this, and I just want to make sure that we can communicate that information from her years of experience down to anyone that's interested in publishing. And there's going to be some other things that we're going to be talking about, like events and activities and workshops that we want to put out there too, Liz.
Right, and classes and things. And so the third part of publishing is partner publishing. And that's kind of what basically we do. Somebody comes to us usually, or me in the past, these past 10 or 12 years, and they've got a manuscript and they want to publish that manuscript, but they don't know what to do next. And so there's editing, as we've talked about. There's the cover design. There's the front cover, the spine, and the back cover. A lot of people forget about the spine. Well, the spine is based on number of pages. Well, you don't know what the number of pages are until you decide on the size of the book. Things like that. There are different standard sizes. A lot of people come in, they do all kinds of work with an off size, and then they find out they can't print that. They can't publish that because nobody has that format. And they've spent thousands of dollars creating artwork or illustrations, maybe for a children's book, and the format doesn't work. So you need to learn these things before you get too far down the road. You need to develop a plan. That's the other thing that we want to do for you here on this show is talk about these things that you need to know ahead of time. Because what happens for most people, they write the book and they wake up and go, oh, I got to publish. Then they try to figure out how to publish. And then they go, oh, I have to market. Oh, I got to launch. Oh, you mean there's ways I can sell the book? How do I have to sell this book? So we're going to talk about all those things. We're going to make it simple. We're going to make it easy. We're going to give step-by-step kind of plain things for people and put it in shorter bite sizes that people can actually take and then implement themselves. Hopefully that's our goal, is to share these tips and secrets so that they can get that.
And speaking of launching, there's somebody calling you to launch a book now.
Yep. That's right. Sorry, and it's over there across the room, so I can't get to it. So I can't even turn it off, but it'll go off in a minute. But
so the reality is in launching is a new horizon with the internet and coming up with the internet and self-publishing and everything else. So speak a little bit about what the secret of launching is looking like these days.
Well, and so launching is the thing, because there's multiple platforms today. Okay, obviously the most well-known platform is Amazon. The second is probably Barnes and Noble. The third is going to be iBooks or iTunes or Apple Books, is what they're calling it now. They're transitioning through this process just like everybody else. Yeah. Ingram Spark. I mean, Ingram they didn't do self-publishing for years, but now they're like everybody else. They got to get in the market and compete because they've got all these other people taking their business away and their revenue stream away from them. So they're getting into into that game as well. And so that's the thing about launching. You really want to plan ahead about a launch. You want to have what we call a street team. That's at 5, 6, 8, 10 people that are on your side that that have followers, that do social media or have an email list. And you make a deal with them to help you. Will you send out my stuff for me? Well, you can't contact them 2 days before you're going to launch and say, oh, will you send my stuff out for me? You got to do that 2 or 3 weeks or a month or two ahead of time and give them the opportunity to put it into their schedule. Because Russ is a busy guy. I can't call Russ up and say, Russ, I need you to do something for me day after tomorrow. He's going to go, are you crazy? I mean, I'd love to help you, Liz, but not happening. So, there's timing and there's schedules, and those are all things that we're going to talk about. How long does it usually take to do certain things? Writing can take you anywhere from, 2 or 3 months to 5 or 10 years. I mean, it shouldn't. I mean, I talk to people and they go, I'm writing a book. And I said, well, how long have you been writing that book? And they go, 7 years. I'm like, Alicia, it doesn't take 7 years. Now,
Yeah.
it might take some months or maybe 6 months or a year or a couple of years, but a lot of people have. A lot of people have been working on a book for 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And, at some point, you have to get over perfect.
Yeah.
Progress over perfection is what it's all about here. So that's about launching. And there are things you can do to launch to get to number one. We'll be talking about all those things, the different ways. Amazon has a number one. Barnes Noble has their number one. Obviously, New York Best Time Seller, USA Today. I mean, all of these different organizations have a process for what they think is a number one best-selling book. So,
And I think you have a pretty good track record at getting books and authors to number one.
I have a pretty good track record, 112 straight number one Amazon bestsellers, because Amazon's our main platform. We always start there, and then we move to other platforms like Barnes & Noble and Ingram and Kobo. Kobo is an ebook platform. Actually, a group out of Canada manages that, but you'll see that. There are Kobo things just like there are Kindles, but now you don't even have to have a Kindle to read an ebook.
No.
For years, you had to have a Kindle or a Nook. Well, now you can download a free software from any of those platforms, or go to the Apple Store, the Google Store, or the Android Store. Download the free app to read, and you can read on your phone or your tablet or your computer or whatever whatever you have.
Wherever you want to read it.
Wherever you want to read it. So it's getting so much easier, and all of these opportunities exist now, and some of them didn't exist even just a couple of years ago, but they certainly didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago. So launching is a big thing, but it's something you need to plan. You need to think about, if you're writing a book about breast cancer, well, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, or maybe it's kidney aware, or whatever. There's going to be a month or a holiday or a made up. It may even be you can make up your own holiday, and launch your book around that. But
Liz Lawless launch day.
Right, that's it. So maybe ours is going to be, like you say, the art and business of publishing. Well, we're just going to create the art and business of publishing week, and maybe that week is like the first week of October. And for that whole week of October, we're going to be talking about the art and business of publishing. But
I want
to create it.
I want to plant this seed, Liz, that as we continue to have these conversations in these episodes, we want to have you comment down below if you're interested in having a book, or having help publish your book, or launching a book, or marketing your book. Because and let us know what stage of that process you're in. And
and if you've got any questions, ask your questions.
Ask your questions, because we want to answer your questions.
Put those questions in the chat. You'll see our stuff on social media. We're going to be posting on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or TikTok. And if you find us on one of those platforms, or you participate on one of those platforms, just go into the comments and ask us a question. So we'll be glad to answer that, or try to answer it. And if we don't know the answer, we probably know the answer. But if we don't know the answer, we can find the answer.
We know somebody that knows the answer.
We know somebody that knows the answer. That's exactly right.
And I want to talk a little bit about marketing books, because it's not the same as launching your book. And a lot of people think, okay, I printed this book out, and where are all the people waiting to buy my book?
I loaded and
so you have to kind of combine those elements.
Where are the sales at? Right. Who's buying my book? Who's buying my book? Well, that's it. And, and today, like you say, with market, there's always been 100 ways to market your book. There are offline ways that still work successfully. There are online ways, and a lot of new online things are just coming along. Like you say, in the past 5, 6, maybe 7, 8 years, social media. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have, maybe the Facebook was in the early stages. Twitter was in the early stages. LinkedIn, maybe early stages. But, all of these other platforms, and those are just the big ones. There are thousands of little platforms as well that you can promote on. And so marketing, you have to really think about that.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to talk budget. We're going to talk about the numbers, whether that's writing and editing or cover design or like you say, working with somebody to help you with the layout and the formatting and all of those kinds of things. But yeah, you really need to think about who your audience is. Marketing always comes back to audience. Is
And
your
the other thing,
audience?
the other
Yeah,
thing,
go ahead.
Liz, that I think you want to make sure that we talk about is each strategy has its own set of rules,
Right.
right? And that's one thing that we were talking about the other day when you were talking to me
Yeah.
about this is each each goal that you have to kind of work backwards and then add those
Right.
elements into the process because you don't always have the same requirements for each type of launch and
Right.
marketing process. So,
Right, exactly. So depending on, what you're writing about, like you say, who your audience is, the reason you want to know this thing, be thinking about marketing up front, and it's the same thing people get and they publish and then they go, oh, I got to market. Well, you need to be thinking about that marketing from the very first. If you're thinking about writing a book and you're new, you've never written a book, you
mhm.
need to be thinking about who your audience is. And the biggest myth that exists out there is my book's for everybody. Well, I'm here to tell you your book's not for everybody, but even if it were for everybody, you can't market to everybody. You
And
don't
it's
have
hard to
enough
build a
money.
community. It's really
Right.
hard to build a community
Yeah.
around
You're absolutely right,
everyone.
Russ.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Russ and I don't even have enough money to market to everybody. So that's why you got to choose a primary and a secondary market. And once you're successful in that market, then you can go after another market. We're not
Yeah.
saying you can't go after somebody else, but the problem is somebody that's like you say, if you've got a 60-year-old man who's a professional, he's not getting his information the same way as a 30-year-old mother of four is or two. Okay, she's getting her information in a different place. And so if you're trying to market to him and you're marketing, on Facebook or maybe you're marketing on Pinterest, well, you're not going to get that 60-year-old man. You might need to be on Twitter or LinkedIn or some professional
Yeah.
platform, or you may need to go to the Chamber of Commerce or the Rotary Club or the Lions Club, because those places still exist.
Yeah.
Organizations, professional organizations. It doesn't matter if you're in computers or medicine or technology or finance. There are all kinds of conventions and conferences that go on. We obviously go to library conferences and school conferences, just depending on your market and who your target market is. So you really got to think about that up front and determine who that is and write to that person, because we love connection, as you know, Russ. I mean, it's all about connection, and this social media. Choose a platform that you like, that you want to participate on. You don't have to be on everything.
No.
I mean, we're on everything, but this is our business.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
I think more importantly, I think it's build a community around the concept you're writing about.
Right. Exactly.
That's the main takeaway for me is,
Yeah.
hey, if I'm going to write about a subject, I have to write a subject that's going to resonate with the audience I want to relate to, I want to communicate with, and I want to build a relationship with. And
Right. Yeah.
a lot of my experience may not necessarily coincide with the audience I'm growing now. However, I could write about a lot of different topics, but
Right.
it makes sense if I'm, and that goes back to setting your goal and
Right.
setting the outcome you're looking to achieve,
Right.
and then putting those tasks in place that are going to help you move that along. And that what that takes is a little bit of insight, experience, and
Right.
also a
No.
strategy that I
Right.
think Liz is a master at. And
Yeah,
so
and Russ too.
follow us,
From a
connect with us.
marketing standpoint, like you say, you can use live streaming, you can use podcasting, you can use e-newsletters, blogging. We're going to talk about all these things individually, because it is overwhelming. And I say all the time, there are a lot of moving parts to publishing, and so that's why we've got to break it down. But think about that marketing. Think about who your audience is. Who do you want to help the most? Yes, you could help everybody, but who do you really want to help the most? If you've, like you say, gone through a divorce and you got a divorce after 20 or 30 years, you probably want to help other people that have been through a divorce after 20 or 30 years, because you know how they feel. You can understand their emotions and you can connect with them. You can say, I really understand. I don't know exactly what happened to you, but this is my story. Tell
Right.
me your story. And then you get that conversation going and that communication back and forth, and you find out, oh, we've got things in common. So that's a really great thing. And then we say 5 secrets because, in my mind, distribution and launching are the other two things. Most people are going to talk to you about writing, publishing, and marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. They may tell you a little bit about launching, but unless they've done it themselves, they're not going to know much about that. Distribution, like you say, a whole nother ballpark. I mean, it's like a whole nother, a whole nother country we're moving into
Yeah.
here in distribution.
And it is a secret to many. It's a secret to many,
Right. It really
right?
is. Most people know about libraries and bookstores. And if you print, maybe if you're a spiritual writer and you write spiritual related things or Christian related things, maybe you know about churches. But there's a whole world of other people. There's corporations, there's nonprofits, there's military, there's colleges and universities, there's specialty stores, there's toy stores, there's lady apparel stores, there's children apparel. Any kind of store could actually probably sell your book if you pitch it the right way, if you know how to talk to them about that. And the problem is, each of those distribution opportunities deals in a different way. You can't talk to the somebody at a college and university like you talk to a retail bookstore. They don't
Right.
talk the same language. They don't have the same inventory list. They don't have the same budgetary opportunities or places that they can spend their money.
Well,
And
like you were explaining to me the other day, some stores don't even have books on their inventory list, so they can't accept it into their inventory. However, they have gifts.
right,
So you can actually, and knowing something about the person you're talking to and their retail establishment is going to be really valuable to to kind of understand what they're coming from, what they're
right.
looking for, and and how you can help them. So
Yeah,
I
and
think
it's
it's
with any
huge.
customer. It's the same thing with any customer that you're dealing with. You got to put yourself in the customer's position. You got to put yourself in their place and say, what do they have to deal with? How do they order? How do they have events? Will they let an author come into the store, into a place and do something? We always do events and book signings, and you've talked about those other things that we'll be talking more about as we go along. But like you say, we've mentioned there's conferences, there's festivals, there's things on the weekend in your hometown. Maybe you grew up somewhere and you live somewhere else now. Well, they always want to tell those stories about the hometown kid that did well. So,
Mhm.
media relations, that's another place of marketing. You can send media releases or press releases. A lot of people speak. That's why
Yep.
we talk about, I mean, we're really upfront with people. You're not going to get rich with a book in most cases. Now, if you do a series of books, eventually you can make pretty good money with a
Mhm.
series, whether that's a nonfiction series or a fiction series or children's books. But most of the time, you're going to need that upsell to something else. So don't quit your day job. We're not advocating you quit your day job, but it's going to take you a while to build this process and to build this author career. And you're going to have to take this author journey. And we're here to help you. And we just hope that this show helps you. We are going to be interviewing authors all across the board, best-selling authors, and they're going to tell you their story. And so we hope you'll come on. We're going to be here every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll have a schedule. We'll be talking about who's coming up in the next few weeks. We're going to be talking to one of our chefs, and he's a business. He has a business book. He has a cookbook. He also has a series of children's books about called Happy Veggies. It's about the being on the farm and getting kids to eat stuff like broccoli and carrots and the cauliflower. And so he has a recipe with each of those books too, and a character. So really fun stuff you're going to see, and maybe that'll spark something for you.
A little bit
I
of
know Russ, the
creativity,
same
I'm
thing.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really an amazing journey that we're planning. Liz is a master in all of these processes. I've done a few things here and there with marketing, live streaming, and content creation. So between the two of us,
Master there.
we have a few years experience, and we
Right.
have an opportunity to share that experience with you. So join the community, follow us on social, make sure that you're asking questions so we can answer those questions on another live stream in the future, and actually get involved in the community. We're going to be building this out and making sure that you have an opportunity to actually join us,
Right.
and maybe in the near future launch your own book.
That's
In
right. That's right. So we encourage you, if you've got a dream of writing, or even if you've got your manuscript or your part down, maybe you're a little ways down the road, this show is going to be for you. If you're brand new and you've never even written, you're just thinking about it, this show is going to be for you. If you're a seasoned author and maybe you've got a bunch of books and maybe you've already published and maybe you self-published or maybe you published traditionally, I believe we're going to talk about some marketing and distribution things that maybe you haven't thought about or maybe you haven't participated in. And so, and new opportunities open up every day, with the technology and with the platforms, influencers. I mean, it's just all things across the board that we're going to be chatting about. And Russ knows
so
all about that technology. I mean, there are certain technical pieces that you need in place, a website, mailing, email system. I mean, those are all things that people don't think about. And so we want
yeah.
to tell you the secrets. We want to tell you the things that a lot of people don't know about or won't tell you about. And then we're also going to, like you say, we're going to give you the free options, the paid options, the things you can do yourself, the things you probably shouldn't do yourself because it eventually cost you more, sometimes if you do those things. But we appreciate the opportunity to be here. We look forward to getting to know you. We look forward to hearing your story. And we hope you'll join us here each Tuesday. Either Russ or I will be here together, or maybe one of us will be interviewing another author. We've got Tricia Shimon with The Great Divorce Revolution. Like we say, J. Stephen Sadler's Quest for the Best, and Happy Veggies. We'll have Mike Ferris, who writes legal thrillers. He also was the attorney that won the biggest publishing case in the history of publishing
Wow.
against the Shades of Grey people around the Shades of Grey books and movies. And so a lot of interesting things coming up. I think you'll enjoy it. It'll be educational. We hope it'll be informative and entertaining as well. So with Russ here, it can't help but be entertaining.
We
We got that
promise to make
pirate
it
thing.
interesting and nothing else, right, Liz?
That's right. If nothing else. So we're pirates here. We're outlaws. We're lawless. We're outlaws. We're thinking outside the box. And if you live in that space and you're creative and you're looking for that safe place or that place to communicate and be with other people like you, that's us.
We're here.
One of my great children's book authors, she said to me one time, it was just so funny. It's been a couple of years ago, but she said, we just seem to draw the crazy people that are weird and different. But we love it, don't we? We love it, don't we?
We
I said,
love it.
yes,
We
we love
love
it.
it.
We love people like that. So if you think you're weird or different,
We
hi,
need it
come
all.
on
We need it
down,
all.
baby. Come
Yeah.
on over.
Yeah. Join us. Join us. And you don't have to be crazy to join us, but it doesn't hurt at all. So
Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. Don't be
well,
scared of that.
well,
Yeah. And if
Liz,
you're
thank
not
you.
crazy, don't be scared of us either.
Yeah. Don't be scared. It's a good kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And Liz,
That's it.
thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to this wild adventure. And also, we're going to be sharing some other content here and there. So stay tuned and stay paying attention to what we're putting out there, and follow
Yeah,
us,
what's
like
going on?
us, and all the social activities that you can, because
Yeah, we're going to have some workshops, some courses, maybe some challenges, maybe
yeah,
some writing challenges, some marketing challenges, and maybe some video challenges because I didn't want to do it, but here I am, and as you can see, I probably still need a little help with my lighting and some other stuff, but you just got to put
we'll
yourself
get you
out
in
there.
tune. We're improving every day, Liz.
We
Every day.
are. So we appreciate you joining the author adventure, the art and business of publishing, because it is a business, and we're going to talk numbers to you, and we're going to talk straight. We're going to tell you the truth. We're not going to lie to you. We're going to tell
And
you
5
how
secrets.
what really happens, and then Russ is going to be sure we get in those 5 secrets to success. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next time we're on.
Take care. Enjoy the day.
Bye-bye.